What's up, y'all? Sparty here, and I want to do my versus video between the Samsung Galaxy S7 and the LG G6. Now, I just want to get this out of the way and say that both of these phones are phenomenal. There's really no issues I have with any of these, or pretty much, I don't really have a personal preference. And I just want to get that out of the way just to tell you guys that whatever I say about any phone that's bad, it's not because it's not like a leaps and bound difference. It's more just personal preference. So just keep that in mind. And that's how it's going to be with videos like this, where I buy a $800, $600 phone, and I just want to give you guys my take on it. So I'm first going to start out with the Samsung Galaxy S7. On the back, you have your 12 megapixel camera with dual pixel technology, which essentially allows you to focus faster in pretty much any situation. So say you want to focus on, say, the G6 right here, you can do that, but then you focus on the fan in the background, and it works really well. It's very fast, probably the fastest focusing that's on a phone, aside from like maybe the Galaxy S8, which might be a bit faster. On the front, you have your 5.1-inch Quad HD Super AMOLED display. On the right here, you have your 5 megapixel front facing wide angle camera. You have your always on display right here. You have your receiver right here for calls, your home button, on the left right here, you have your recent apps. On the right, you have your back button. The home button doubles as a fingerprint scanner. On the left, you have your volume buttons, really clicky, really responsive. Don't have to worry about that. On the right, you have your power button, which is also clicky and responsive, so you don't have to worry about that either. On the bottom, you have your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. You have your micro USB charging / data transfer port. You have your microphone, and you have your speaker grill, which are two antenna lines at the bottom right here. You have your other two antenna lines at the top right here with your other microphone, your SIM card slot, and your SD card slot. And you have your heart rate sensor and your LED flash right there. On the LG G6, you have your dual 13 megapixel camera array on the back. One is a regular angle, one is a wide angle. This has one f1.8 in the aperture. This has one f1.7 in the aperture. This has f2.4. You have your your dual tone LED flash. You have your power button / fingerprint scanner. You have your volume up and down buttons on the right. Very clicky, very responsive as well. You have your two antenna lines right here. You have your microphone up here. You have your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on the bottom. You have your other antenna line. You have your other microphone, your USB Type-C charging ports, and your speaker. You have your SIM card ejection, your SIM card and SD card slot here as well. Your other antenna line and your other antenna line right there. Okay, so what I want to get into now is pretty much speed. And to do that, I pretty much have to not speed, but fluidity, not speed. Now, the LG G6 has a Snapdragon 821 processor, and the Galaxy S8 has a Snapdragon 820. In day-to-day performance versus 820, 821 in general, in my personal testing and in my personal, experience, there really is no clear difference. There's better you get You get more consistent performance with the 821, and it's more power efficient. Obviously, I don't know why I can't find. Hold on. I always pass it. I don't know why, but but as you guys can see, you scroll through here. When it goes past that line, it's going under 60 frames per second. And as you guys can see, majority of it is being above 60 frames. If I go to in-apps and go to this kind of faux app drawer, it's the same thing. It pretty much stays under 60 frames per second aside from launching it. Now, I have all these apps open in the background on both as well, so just keep that in mind. I'm not doing this from like a clean slate necessarily. But what I'm trying to say is both of these phones perform admirably. You don't necessarily have to worry about any of these being super slow. Especially when it comes to the S7 having a slightly slower processor, I guess. I'm not necessarily going to say it does, but as you guys can see, I'm opening apps, right? And with the G6, it's more fluid with how consistent it closes the app when I press the home button, whereas on the S7, there's a bit of a delay. Now, Google Play is probably one of the worst offenders in that case, because it does that on any phone aside from the Pixel. But yeah, oh dear God. As you guys can see, I have all these apps open in both. And as you guys can see, there's a bit of a hiccup there too. It keeps doing it. Whereas on here, and I don't just have like regular apps open, I actually have games open too. And as you guys can see, the G6 is not stuttering or anything like that when it comes to exiting the recent apps carousel. Whereas there's a bit of jitter with the S7. But no matter, that's nothing terrible, and both of them close apps really fast. So you'll be able to get your RAM back very easily. Both have 4 gigabytes of RAM as well. I don't know why I forget that point. But yeah. So now I guess I'll do gaming. Well, no, I'm going to do an overall screen brightness test, because that's what you're looking at majority of the day when you're using both of these phones. Now, I didn't talk about the display on the LG G6, but this is a 5.7-inch Quad HD IPS LCD, it's not quantum, full vision display. Now, it has an 18:9 aspect ratio as opposed to this, which has a 16:9 aspect ratio. You have your 5-megapixel camera on the front. You have your ambient light sensors. You cover them and the always on display will go off, so don't worry about that draining your battery in your pocket. Same with this. And black levels on here are amazing for an LCD. Like, if you expect it to not look like LCD blacks used to look grainy and like washed out. Now LG has finally made it so it essentially it doesn't look like AMOLED. Don't get me wrong. You can't really imitate AMOLED on an LCD. You can't, because there's clearly a backlight. You can see the backlight, but it's not as pronounced. as it used to be, especially if you compare the G6 to the LG G3. That's night and day. But I don't have a G3, so I can't talk about that. I could just go off of what I remember from the G3. But yeah, I'm going to go into gaming now, but both get very bright in sunlight. So if you guys worry about that, there's really nothing to worry about when it comes to that, because they both get very bright. You can see the screens very well in sunlight. And as you guys can see, there's not really much of a difference when it comes to brightness. It's just that obviously the AMOLED is a bit brighter, but it's not too much brighter to the point where you'll be like, oh, I need that AMOLED because it's way brighter. And I do have to turn it down a bit more at times. But I'm going to get into gaming here real quick. Now, both of these have the Adreno 530 GPU. They're both, as I said, but this has the 820, that has the 821. Now, I don't necessarily have the same games on both. But for the games that I do have both games on both, I'm just going to play those two and play them side by side. Give me a second. All right, now, the game I'm using is Dynasty Warriors Unleashed. Now, what I want to talk about essentially is how both of these games perform, essentially, when it comes to overall how they perform. And they both perform very well with this game. But the one thing you got to keep in mind about the LG G6 is due to its aspect ratio, not games are going to be cropped. Especially if you use their app scaling feature. Some games won't fully support it. Oh, is it not playing auto despite the fact? Let me focus on it. But as you guys can see, it's playing fairly smooth. I'm going to let it play out to the end. There's really no hiccups or anything. There might be like a bit of like glitching with the game when it comes to like, it's more the game itself. It has nothing to, holy shit. That's what I'm talking about. They just go back for everything rather than just keep going, pushing on, which I get, but come on. Now, I'm not too well versed in Dynasty Warriors, but I played a few of them. Excuse me. Oh, shit. And of course, she fucking goes all the way and misses the boss. That fucking sucks. Anyway, as you guys can see, it plays well. I'm going to do the same thing on the G6, so. But I got to turn the volume down because the volume was up. As you guys can see, the game actually scales very well on the G6. And I haven't seen any like graphical glitches and whatnot with it. It's actually been playing very smooth and very consistently. I haven't seen, as I said, I haven't seen any glitches, so it's not a drawback at all with this specific game. In other games like Marvel Future Fight, that scales well to 18:9 automatically. It supports it by default, so you don't have to worry about scaling that if you guys play that. But I'm going to let it play out a bit. because I just want to get to the rest of the video. But as you guys can see, there's no like lag, no stutter, nothing like that. It's playing fairly consistent. Like, this is not like the most graphically intense game, but it's up there as far as like how many like enemies it's pushing on the screen and stuff like that, which is typical Dynasty Warrior stuff. But yeah, as you guys can see, it's actually it runs fairly well. So I'm gonna just stop that there, and I'm gonna talk about the cameras. Now I'm gonna cut away for this one because I've taken a lot of shots and I just want to talk about that separately. So just bear with me as I do this different style, and I'll cut back with whatever else I want to talk about. But I guess first, before that, I'll talk about battery life. Battery life has been phenomenal on both of these phones. With this in particular, mainly because I don't have a SIM card in it with service, it will consistently get more. It'll stay on in the 90s well until like, 5, 6 a.m. and stuff like that. But that's mainly due to the fact that I don't have a SIM card in it that has service, obviously, so it's not going to ping service unless it has, unless obviously it has, Wi-Fi connection and all that. So just keep that in mind. But in overall endurance, I guess I'd have to give it to the G6. This has a 3,000 milliamp hour battery. This has a 3,300 milliamp hour battery. I don't know why I was about to say 3,600, but it's 3,300. I can pull easily 15-hour days out of both of these phones. So if you're worried about that, just remember it depends on your use. My use is essentially taking pictures, the occasional YouTube videos and stuff like that, being in places that don't have very good like data reception, like Sears doesn't have good data reception. And I have to work in the back room, so it's even worse. What else? Shit. Just streaming through Bluetooth, streaming podcasts through Bluetooth. And these are not like 50-minute podcasts. These are like hour to 3-hour podcasts. So it'll last me throughout the entire day, no problem. The least battery I ended up with at the end of the day is maybe 40%, but that's going through both jobs and without charging it. And I've done that like twice already and used the G6 as my daily driver without using my V20, and it has worked very well. Now, as far as the always on display as well, obviously the S7 is going to get a bit brighter because if the LCD gets brighter, it'll obviously show light bleed. But when there's sunlight, as you guys can see, it's getting brighter now. It will get brighter, and there's no light bleed, no like visible light bleed right now because it's not very dark outside. I mean, it is dark outside, but it's not terribly dark outside. So yeah, right now I'm going to cut away to the cameras and whatnot and just talk about those separately. So yeah, that'll probably be the final point I talk about, but it's whatever. All right, time to do that. Now the first photo that you guys will see will be from the G6. The next will be from the S7, and it'll just alternate in that order. G6, S7, G6, S7. It'll pretty much be like that. So just remember that. Now this first image you see is from the G6, and as you see, it's a bit darker. You can see the clouds a bit clear, and the overall image is sharp. Now with the S7, it's a bit brighter image. The clouds are actually quite visible and the image is still sharp as well. It's a bit brighter, as you guys can see, as compared to the G6. Now this shot from the G6 is obviously low light, and as you guys can see the bit clouds on the left. Pretty good reproduction of the scene, and you guys can see it fairly well. Pretty much the same on here, not really a difference. I focused on like the little clock and the clock tower, and it looked pretty nice on both, so no problems on either side. Same with this church scene here. It's actually pretty dark. There's a little bit of overexposure on the right with the little street lights there, but it's whatever, nothing too serious or too much to complain about. Now, as far as the S8, it's a bit better, but it's not much better. And as you guys can see, it alternates pretty much from quality, so there's really no complaints on either side from me, honestly. Now with this shot, as you guys can see with this G6, the street is a bit blue, but I focused pretty much on the clouds, and it pretty much does it very well to where I wanted the scene to focus on the clouds rather than the street itself. Now with the S8, it kind of like shows more of the scene where the houses and stuff are, and it's a bit yellow, which is what I mean by its oversaturation, but it's not too terrible. It looks actually very stunning on both sides for me. Now this is one where I just focused on the clouds again as well, so I didn't want to see any of the grass, and as you guys can see, I can't see any of it, and it looks very nice. And as contrast to the S7 here, where you can kind of see a bit of like the grass a little bit, not too much. I kind of like the G6s a bit better because you can see where I wanted to focus a bit more. Now with these macro shots, I just did it so you can see how good it does with focusing. With the G6, you can see with the background blur, it's fairly nice. The bokeh is very nice while focusing on the RC Cola branding right there. And with the S8, it's pretty much the same story. And as you guys can see, there's a person back there. It's pretty well like focused on just the RC Cola branding and not anything else in the background. Now I just focused on the little poster in the background, and as you guys can see, the RC Cola logo is actually fairly well, not out of focus, and that's what I like a lot. Same here. Now, I took it in a different angle, so it may look a bit different, but it's still, they're both on par with each other, in my opinion. And this is where you can see the oversaturation a bit with the S7. It looks a bit yellow or orange. Now, this is a stabilization test with the G6 to see how great it does with video as far as like, jello effect and all that. And it's very minimized in here, in my opinion. Now I just turned around and all that stuff just to show you guys what it would look like. And I turned the exposure down as well so you guys can see how dark you could make it if you wanted to make it a bit darker. And when I focus on the lamplight, you can see that it gets darker as well. Fairly well dark. Now with the S7, it's the same deal, but you can see there's a bit more of jello effect in the background, and that's pretty much due to the auto-focusing, where it wants to stay in focus constantly. And it's not terrible, but it's not the best, in my opinion. Now this is just a video focus test with the G6. I couldn't find it with my S7, so I'm just going to do it with my G6 here. Now I'm going to focus here on the Black Label Mountain Dew can, and as you guys can see, the background is blurred out, and as you guys can see, the Mountain Dew logo is blurred out, and it keeps just doing that. I keep alternating. And same here with this Mr. Pure bottle. You guys can see I focus out, I focus back in. It locks fairly well. Now I'm just pretty much, this is the S7 now, and as you guys can see, it keeps like rejiggering the focus, and it's not terrible, but it's actually pretty good. It just keeps focus quite well. I guess I did do a focus test on here, and it's pretty fast. Now here with the S7, I'm just going straight zoomed into the light, and as you guys can see, it stays out of focus. Not very well, but you're not really going to do this a lot with your phone. So, a final verdict on these cameras. Now, both of these are amazing. Don't get me wrong. But with the jello effect that you kind of get, it's kind of worse on here than it is on here. You could kind of see it on here, but with the S7, you get it with, it's like, due to its like great autofocusing. So it's like a catch-22, I guess, where you get great autofocusing at the cost of, you know, decent not decent, but you know, amazing stabilization. You get good stabilization on here, but I think it's a bit better on here because you get that lack of like terrible jelloing and stuff like that. But you can't go wrong with either cameras. Both are great. I use both for videos and whatnot, so you can't really go wrong with either. Especially if you're with a tripod mount and stuff like that, you'll do great. But yeah, S7, both are great in low light. There's not necessarily a champ between both of these. They alternate. I get a more consistent performance in low light out of the G6, honestly. But even then, it might be like a little bit dimmer, a little bit grainier in here. But it's on the S7, but it's whatever. Alright, so my final verdict on the Galaxy S7 and the LG G6. Now, both of these are amazing phones in pretty much every right. Both are built pristinely, both feel great in the hand, both have amazing cameras, save for the oversaturation that tends to be on Samsung phones and their software. And while there's like a bit of remnants of that with like the G6, a lot of like, you know, photos tend to be saturated, a bit too saturated for my liking, but I can deal with it. I can deal with it on both, honestly, but it's not as like saturated as it is on here. That doesn't make this a shit camera or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying. But as far as these two go, which one would I pick over the other? If you want a more consistent experience, I'd say go with the G6. I get no lag whatsoever on this phone, really. Like, I haven't yet. Nothing too terrible. Like, if it really boils down to price, I'd say go with the S7 strictly because it's cheaper. But both are ample performers in a lot of ways. Both are water resistant, water and dust resistant, IP67. Both are really good in the battery department as well. This would probably get you through the day better than this would, though, due to its bigger battery size and better optimization. Overall thickness and whatnot, if you prefer a thicker phone, go with the G6. But if you prefer a thinner feeling phone, because I guess the G6 is a bit thicker. If you prefer physical home button and whatnot, and front mounted fingerprint scanners, go with the S7. There's really nothing wrong you could do with going with either of these. Speaker is really better on here, as well as headphone performance is better on here. LG really stepped up their headphone jack game when it comes to the G6 on here. You won't get the quad DAC like you do on the V20 or even in the international/Korean G6. You won't get the quad DAC, but you'll get a pretty good headphone output, better than this has, than you did with like the G5 and stuff like that. Speaker quality is better, honestly. Despite the fact that they're both water resistant, speaker quality is richer and fuller and even louder on here, where it sounds a bit tinny and distorted on here and more robotic like on here. If you want overall audio quality, I'd say go with the G6 over the S7, but honestly, you can't go wrong with both. They're both amazing phones. They're both great. They both feel great. They both look great. And honestly, if you want a more versatile camera, go with the G6 as well. If you want a more like stable camera, if you want a more, I guess, a camera that focuses better or faster, not necessarily better, because as I said, it does actually like to hang up sometimes, and as you guys have seen in the video samples, it does tend to hang up on certain points where it'll snap into focus constantly and snap out and not stay focused. You guys have seen it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So they're both amazing phones. You can't go wrong with either one. If you have an S7 and you're kind of keen on going to the G6 because you don't want the S8, I'd say if there are many things that you like more about the G6 over the S7, go to the G6. If not, stay with the S7. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support, and be sure to share the video and whatnot to let people know if they're like questioning purchasing decisions on these expensive ass phones. Just let them know. Watch this video and they will know how they will get a verdict on what they may want. But yeah, again, this is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching and have a good one.